I made one mistake that night. Just one. I waited. My apartment is in a gentrifying neighborhood. The kind where the rent climbed faster than the streetlights got fixed. 3rd floor walk-up. Metal security door at the building entrance that buzzed when it opened. I'd gotten used to the sound. The scrape of hinges. The slam that echoed up the stairwell. That Tuesday I came home late from work. The hallway light was out again. I fumbled with my keys in the dark and heard the buzzer. Then footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, deliberate. Stopping on the 2nd floor landing. I locked my door. Checked the peephole. Nothing but darkness. The footsteps started again. Slower this time. Reaching my floor. I watched through the peephole as a shadow passed. A man. He walked to the end of the hall, then turned around, walked back, stopped outside my door. I stepped away from the peephole, held my breath. He knocked 3 times. Soft knocks, almost polite. I didn't answer. He knocked again. I grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I opened the emergency call screen and hesitated. What would I even say? A man knocked on my door. That's not a crime. Maybe he had the wrong apartment. Maybe he was a neighbor I'd never met. The knocking stopped. I heard him try the handle. It rattled but held. Then his footsteps moved away. Down the stairs. The buzzers sounded as the security door opened and closed. I convinced myself it was nothing. A mistake. Wrong address. 20 minutes later, the buzzer sounded again. The footsteps returned. This time they came straight to my door. No hesitation. He knocked harder. When I didn't answer, he spoke through the door. "I know you're in there." His voice was calm, almost friendly. That scared me more than anything. I called 911. The dispatcher answered after 40 seconds. It felt like an hour. I whispered everything. The man at my door, his voice, the handle rattling. She asked for my address twice, asked if he'd threatened me, asked if he had a weapon. "I don't know," I said. "I can't see him. He's just outside my door." She told me officers were being dispatched. She told me to stay on the line, stay away from the door, don't engage. The man knocked again, harder. "Open the door. I just want to talk." "How long?" I asked the dispatcher. "How long until they get here?" "They're on their way," she said. "Stay calm." But she didn't give me a time. I listened to her breathing on the line. The man stopped knocking. I heard him sit down in the hallway. He was waiting. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The dispatcher stayed with me, but I could hear other calls coming in behind her. Voices. Chaos. She kept saying the officers were coming. At 25 minutes, the man stood up. I heard him walk back down the stairs. The buzzer sounded. He left. The police arrived 14 minutes later. 39 minutes total from my call. They took a statement, checked the hallway, looked at the security door, which had been propped open with a piece of cardboard. They said there was nothing they could do. No crime had been committed, no threat made. Just a man who knocked on the wrong door. I asked about a restraining order. They said I'd need to prove a pattern of harassment. One incident wasn't enough. The officers left. I locked my door, checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, but he knew where I lived. He knew I was alone, and he knew exactly how long it took for help to arrive. The next night, I heard the buzzer. I didn't look through the peephole this time. I already knew who it was. My sister told me to leave him. Everyone did. But you don't just leave someone you've been with for 6 years. Someone who knows your passwords, your routines, where your parents live. I finally did it in September. Moved out while he was at work. Took my clothes and my laptop and nothing else. Stayed with a friend in a different part of the city. Changed my number. Blocked him on everything. He found me anyway. 3 days later, he was parked outside the coffee shop where I worked. Just sitting in his car, watching. When I finished my shift, he followed me for 6 blocks before I ducked into a store and called the police. They took 40 minutes to arrive. By then, he was gone. The officer said following someone isn't illegal. Not technically. He told me to document everything. Take photos, save messages, build a case. My manager let me leave early. I went back to my friend's place and researched restraining orders. The process seemed straightforward. Fill out forms, file at the courthouse, wait for a hearing. I filed the next morning. The clerk said a judge would review my request and decide whether to issue a temporary order. If approved, I'd get a court date, usually within 3 weeks. The temporary order came through that afternoon. It said he had to stay 100 yards away from me, from my work, from my friend's address. But there was a problem. The order wasn't enforceable until he was served. Until someone physically handed him the papers and he acknowledged them. The sheriff's office said they'd try to serve him. I gave them his work address, his home address. They said it could take a few days, maybe a week. He didn't go home. Didn't go to work. He knew. Somehow he knew. 5 days passed. The sheriff tried his addresses 4 times. No answer. No contact. I called the court. They said without proof of service, the order meant nothing. I could hire a private process server. I could ask a friend to serve him. But until he received the papers legally, I had no protection. On day 7, he showed up at the coffee shop again. Walked right in. Ordered a drink. Sat down facing the counter. I was shaking so hard I spilled someone's latte. My manager called the police. He finished his coffee and left before they arrived. I stopped going to work. My manager understood, but said she couldn't hold my position indefinitely. I stayed inside, ordered groceries, watched the street through the window. My friend said I could stay as long as I needed, but I could see the strain. The fear. The court hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out, October 15th. But the sheriff still hadn't served him. My lawyer said the hearing would be postponed until service was complete. Could be another month. Could be 2. I asked about emergency protection. My lawyer explained the temporary order was supposed to be the emergency protection, but it didn't work if he avoided service. The system assumed good faith, assumed compliance. He didn't assume anything. He knew exactly what he was doing. On October 10th, I saw him outside my friend's building, just standing there, looking up at the windows. I took a photo, called 911, explained the restraining order, explained he hadn't been served. The dispatcher said without proof of service, there was no violation. Nothing the police could enforce. He waved at me from the sidewalk, then he walked away. The court date got pushed to November 20th. The sheriff finally served him on November 2nd. Took 6 weeks total. The temporary order became enforceable. He stayed away for exactly 3 days. Then he started following me again. This time, he kept his distance. 110 yards, just outside the legal limit. Close enough that I could see him. Far enough that I couldn't prove anything. The full hearing is next week. My lawyer says we have a strong case. Says the judge will likely extend the order for up to 5 years. But I already know what he'll do. He'll wait. He'll follow. He'll stay just outside the boundaries until the paperwork catches up. And by then, it won't matter. Because the damage isn't physical. It's the knowledge that the system has a lag time, a window. And he's learned to live inside it. Every night I check the locks, Every morning I scan the street, and I wonder how many days are left before the window closes, or if it ever really does. I thought a smart home would make us safer. That was the whole point. Cameras on every door, motion sensors, smart locks I could control from my phone, a system that watched everything while I slept. My husband installed most of it. He works in tech, understood the protocols, the networks. He set up a separate Wi-Fi for the devices, changed all the default passwords. Did everything right. We'd been fighting for months. The kind of fighting where you stop making eye contact, where you sleep in separate rooms and plan your morning routine to avoid each other. I told him I wanted a separation. He asked for time to think, said we should try counseling. I agreed. Bought myself a few weeks. Started looking at apartments during my lunch break. On the night of August 3rd, we had our worst fight. I don't even remember what started it. I just remember him standing in the kitchen doorway telling me I was overreacting, that I was being dramatic. I told him I'd already contacted a lawyer. He went quiet. That scared me more than the yelling. He walked to his office and closed the door. I locked myself in the bedroom, checked the door 3 times, watched the handle to make sure it didn't turn. Around midnight, the thermostat kicked on. August in the south means central air runs constantly, but this felt different, louder. I checked my phone. The temperature was set to 89 degrees. I opened the app to adjust it. It changed back immediately, 89, then 90, 92. I went to the hallway thermostat, pressed the buttons. Nothing happened. The screen was frozen. The temperature kept climbing. By 1 a.m., the house was suffocating. I opened the bedroom window, but the heat was inside now. In the walls, I was dizzy, nauseous. I tried to override the system manually, found the circuit breaker, and flipped the AC switch. The thermostat screen went dark. Then the lights went out, all of them, simultaneously. The motion sensors should have kept the hallway lit, but everything was black. I used my phone flashlight to navigate back to the bedroom. Checked the security app. All cameras offline, all sensors offline. I called his name. No answer. I walked to his office. The door was open. His desk lamp was on. He was sitting there with his laptop, looking at me. "Having trouble sleeping?" he asked. I asked him to fix the thermostat. He said he didn't know what was wrong, said the system must have glitched. But his tone was wrong. Too calm, too satisfied. I went back to the bedroom and locked the door, pushed a chair against it for good measure, sat on the floor with my phone. The temperature was 96 degrees. I could barely breathe. I opened a window wider. Thought about leaving, driving to a hotel. But I'd need to go through the house to reach the front door, through the dark, past his office. At 2:30 a.m., the AC kicked back on. Full blast. The house temperature dropped to 65 within an hour. I was shivering, sweating, couldn't regulate. The lights came back on in bursts, random rooms, flickering. The cameras showed online, then offline, then online again. I didn't sleep. In the morning, everything worked normally. The thermostat responded. The cameras recorded. The motion sensors triggered when I walked past them. I asked him what happened. He said it must have been a software update. Sometimes they cause temporary disruptions. But I knew. I knew the way you know when someone's lying, when they've practiced their story too many times. I called a friend, asked if I could stay with her for a few days, packed a bag while he was in the shower, left through the front door and realized I couldn't lock it remotely anymore. The app wouldn't connect. I stood on the porch watching the door, watching the handle. It unlocked itself while I was standing there, opened 6 inches, then closed, locked again. He was still upstairs. I could hear the shower running. I got in my car and drove to my friend's place. She let me stay in her guest room, said I could stay as long as I needed. I changed all my passwords, all my security questions, deleted the smart home apps, factory reset my phone. But the thing about smart homes is they're designed to be convenient, designed so everything connects. And when someone understands the system better than you do, they don't need your password. They just need access to the router, to the network, to the firmware running in the background. My lawyer said technology evidence is hard to prove. Said we'd need an expert to document the vulnerabilities, to show he'd exploited them. That would take time, take money I didn't have. I stayed with my friend for 2 weeks. Then I rented a studio apartment across town. No smart devices, just a deadbolt and a chain lock, basic cable, a window that doesn't open all the way. Last week my friend texted me, said someone had been parked outside her place, a car she didn't recognize, sitting there for hours. She asked if I'd given anyone her address. I hadn't. But my phone had been connected to her Wi-Fi. My GPS history was stored in the cloud he'd set up for us, the one he managed. I think about that night sometimes. The thermostat climbing, the lights cutting out, the door unlocking itself. I think about how easy it was for him to turn our house into a weapon. How the things meant to protect me became the things I had to fear. And I think about the studio apartment, the deadbolt, the chain. How none of it matters if he's already inside the network, if he's already watching, if the failsafe was designed to fail. I haven't updated my phone in 3 weeks, haven't connected to public Wi-Fi, haven't told anyone exactly where I live. But every time my lights flicker, I wonder if it's the building's wiring or something else, something smarter than both of us. When your home stops protecting you, where exactly do you run?